So I'm here with Dar'ya Ribalchenko, who is the executive director of NNLPD, which stands for the National Network of Local Philanthropy Development, a local and national network in Ukraine, to talk about a project that we did together, an initiative that we did together, which was to set up a locally led fund in Ukraine. And the whole premise of this project came from a report that the Disasters Emergency Committee did in the UK, which demonstrated that despite the hundreds of millions of pounds that had gone into Ukraine for that crisis in 2022, in 2023, only 2% of that funding had gone to local and national organizations. And we recognized that there was such not only an opportunity, but a necessity to make sure that local and national organizations were getting to some of that money, because you were actually doing all of the work on the ground, dealing with the conflict firsthand, acting as first-line responders, and yet all the money was going through the International Committee to you. So the whole idea was to set up a locally owned and locally led fund that would be owned and operated by a local organization to get money directly to those organizations that were doing the work. So we set about doing this, and through sort of an open, transparent process, selected NNLPD as the host and manager of that fund. And then we set about working together on it. But as all of these things go, it didn't always go as smoothly as we wanted. There were lots of bumps along the way. And, we recognize, we're really happy and proud that the fund is now up and running. And dispersing money to local organizations. And I know you're going to talk a little bit more about that. But it was also really important for us to talk to you and to understand what went well and what could have gone better. Not only for ourselves and what we want to be continually to improve about our own work on locally led funding, but also so that others could learn from the mistakes that we made in engaging with you. So here we are. I want to have a conversation with you, Dar'ya, a really open and honest one about how this felt for you as a local organization, and how sometimes our intentions weren't as aligned as we thought they might be. So let's have that conversation. From your perspective, what were your expectations going into this partnership with Start Network, and were they met? Why or why not?
I think when we participated in this DEC localization study, it was it was not first a report that we participated and contributed with our knowledge, and we really didn't expect that something will change with this report, because we consider it's more like collecting learnings, and we didn't expect any real change on this. But then when in 2023 we understood that it will be real action and opening a pool fund, we were feeling like we contributed to some change and it would be inspiring. And when Start Network opened a tender for a host in a pool fund, I was receiving a few emails from different our partners that we need to try to apply for this pool fund to become a host, because we had this experience in local grant making and working with communities. And I was trying to measure different yes and no, and if we're capable for all of this. But we understood that yes, we want this, and we were learning about Start Network even before we read different reports that was produced by Start Network, different innovations, and we were excited to take this role because we understood that we can learn so much, that we want to work with a champion in localization, how we I read about you in different reports. So it was really exciting.
Oh, thanks for that. And I think for us, we have run we've run this Global Start Fund for 11 years now. And I think we were really excited to take a practice that we had managed for 10 years, that was based on local leadership, that was based on collective decision-making and ground-level decision-making, and apply it to a context where a local organization was going to be in the lead of all of that decision making and how the fund worked. So although, we weren't trying to create another START fund, we wanted to be a technical partner to you to be able to demonstrate that way of operating, very decentralized, very member-led, was something that would work in a place like Ukraine. So we were also really excited to test our own model in another place at a local level, and also to demonstrate that this decentralized, more sort of country-led way of working would work even in a large-scale crisis, because for us, the START Fund is about small to medium-sized crises, and Ukraine was not that. It was a very large-scale crisis. So for us, there was also some testing and some, understanding whether what we had been doing for 10 years could be used in other contexts. So that's why we went into it, and we were really excited to be able to work with you when you won the tender. Because we understood you had so much experience in Ukraine, but also had touched the international system enough that you knew also that how we might be able to work together.
Yeah, I think when we started to work together, it was really good process described that we need to work with creating a local workshop to collect local organizations and learn from them how they want to see a pool fund. And it was something that also was an interesting practice for me, because I didn't face before that someone would ask potential grantees how they want to receive funding. And it was a good practice in terms of participatory approach in creating a pool fund. But what I think we missed, is time for communication and expectation to see where is limitations that we have in terms of system, in terms of agreements. Because when we collect all of this from local organization, and when we proposed some kind of vision, we understood that all of this vision is not able to fit in the existing system and existing policies that were created much more before even that we started to work together, because of agreements and because of donor approaches. And this is some place where it was complication started.
I think you're being very generous in how with that statement. It was really hard and really contentious, I think, at the beginning, right? Because from our perspective, we were under time pressure to deliver this fund as quickly as we could, because the needs were so immense, the opportunity so essential to get funding to local organizations. So we felt under immense time pressure. So we just came in with our model and said, here it is. We'll adjust it to, your own needs a bit. But I think we really missed a trick in sitting down with you. Like you said, the communities, you had some ideas, and we came in with our models and probably didn't listen enough to what those ideas were. And I think, ironically, in trying to be so quick, trying to be so fast, trying to operate so efficiently in all of this, we slowed things down. Because at the end of the day, we had trouble agreeing on certain aspects of this fund, and it was delayed because of that. So from my perspective, something I'm taking away is, had we taken the time to not just come in with our model, our technical expertise, and say, this is the way we're going to do it, had we listened more to what you guys needed from us and slowed it down and not been so quick to implement, we might have actually gotten the fund up and running faster. What do you think?
I think If we will start everything since the beginning, I would say that even before opening a tender, it would be nice to have these consultations already with a local potential hosts to see how the timelines can be established, how the process can be established, and will it be fitted in existing start fund or should it be developed something new? And I think if we will look back, it's a place where could be improvements happen, but as well I think biggest issue is the time for innovations. We think that innovations can happen fast, and we when we were in this beginning stage, we understood that we also want to fastly run the fund because the crisis happen, war is happening, the needs are growing, and we all need give time for ourselves to test innovations, but as well from donors' perspective. I think donors are also really responsible how much money and for what periods they are given, because if they want us for a half year distribute a few millions, it's not possible to do it really with innovations. It will be a fast grants, fast decisions, and no innovations then happening.
Yeah, no, I think taking time for innovation is a hugely important thing we must take away from this experience. That, as you said, we were under pressure. The donors gave us a time when the money had to be spent. And if we didn't get it spent in that time period, we would lose a lot of it. We ended up getting it extended a little bit, but then not beyond that. So taking the time, I think, is something that everybody, we need to understand, you need to understand, but also the back donors need to understand on all of this. But tell me, I'm really interested to hear, apart from the sort of design of the fund and the fact that we sort of got started too quickly and without enough consultation, even pre-tender, what other things would you say are non-starters? If we were to do this all over again, what would you absolutely refuse to accept the next time?
I think all of the ideas and how we do it, it was good. I think, yes, what I was saying before, that it was lack of time. It was sometimes lack of trust, I would say. And sometimes when we proposed something, we didn't understand systems that you're working with, but you also sometimes didn't want to hear why we propose this. And from my perspective, it was feeling that maybe you even understand what we want, but you don't want to make your system even more complicated to add in new context, new approaches, and maybe it was misunderstanding in this case. Because we wanted to create something that fit to Ukraine, and you, from your perspective, it was my feeling. Yeah, I don't know how it was happening for you. That it was not enough capacity, maybe willingness to adopt the system to Ukrainian context. What I think was good, really good in our partnership is constantly reflecting on what was done, and this openness to communicate about failures and openness to accept, yes, we are in this system and we're ready to reflect it. And this is something that I really appreciate in this partnership, because we all the time, it was openness to talk with you, with all of the team, with Lucy and Gabs, to share and reflect. And all of these events and publications that we done during the implementation, I think is really important, as well as the reports that we have right now.
Yeah, so we have just completed an independent evaluation of the process leading up to this fund. And I think it reflects the fact that we got it. We got there in the end. It's up and running. It's dispersed how much money now?
300,000 pounds.
300,000 pounds to local organizations in Ukraine. We were delayed, but it did get up faster than a lot of the other Ukraine funds that ended up working in Ukraine. So we're really proud of that, obviously. But I mean, I think you're right. There was something about we knew we needed to be flexible about this. We knew we needed to take our designs and open them up for some interrogation, for some contextualization, to make them more Ukrainian than global, which is what we had. But I don't think we realized just how far we needed to go with that. I think we were still pretty rigid around some of our sort of closely held rules and ways of working that we wanted to keep. But also, I think the way that we had set up the arrangements with the DEC, with the person who was the organization that was holding our grants, Save the Children UK, there were too many intermediaries, I think, and too many layers of rules and compliance and requirements that not only slowed things down, but, shrunk the space for any of us to be really flexible and really innovative. There were legal requirements that we had vis-a-vis what Save the Children needed from us. There were donor requirements vis-a-vis what the DEC needed from us. That meant that we had to jump through some hoops with you, and you also had to jump through some hoops that we had never planned for. And the result is we tried to be flexible but couldn't. And none of us could. Save the Children couldn't, and the DEC couldn't. I think the intention was there to be flexible, but the system in which we operated in wouldn't let us be flexible. So, if I were to start from ground zero, if I were to do this all over again, and if we do this all over again in another context, we would make sure that we eliminated the middlemen as much as possible, that this was a much cleaner relationship between a back donor, an intermediary such as Start Network, if you indeed needed us to be an intermediary, and the local organization. Ideally, in the future, we're a technical partner. We would just help to build something, because we do have experience doing that, but we would help to build it in a much more co-creation way than we ultimately did with you. As I said, we got there in the end, but it wasn't without its problems. So were there any other, suggestions you would have for me? If we were to do this in another country some other day, what other suggestions would you have for Start Network or any other international organization or international donor that's trying to do the right thing, but perhaps not in the right way?
I think there is no any recipe how to be a correct partner or something. But I think yes, it's really important to define the roles since in the beginning, because when we started all of this, we expect that Start Network will be more like a technical advisor for us, and that it will be really created by Ukrainians, and with the support and expertise of Start Network will be shifted to be more in terms of more fitted in terms of policies, in terms of how it's designed from donors' perspective, and etc. So we expect this. But when we started realization, we understood that Start Network were playing a role more like intermediary between us and a donor, and there is more intermediaries, and this is something that makes system complicated, because we expect one roles and then we face another roles, and this is something I would advise to talk since the beginning for any organization, who is who in this system and how you communicate with this system. What I would also recommend for future and for Start Network and for other organizations is really to support with fundraising. Because when now we are going to some donors as a local organization, it's really complicated to say that yes, we are a local organization. Yes, we are capable to do it, and because we don't have so big reputation and so big name as Start Network or other international organization can have, and when it's from what I learned already from different pool funds that exist in the world, is really often from when donor invite other donors and invite other INGO to come together and pool in resources. And it's really hard from the perspective of local organization to bring a few donors to pull their resources together. And this is really important role for international organization with their name and reputation, use it for the purpose of localization.
That's great. And I recognize we're also trying now to make sure that there are more donors in the Ukraine pooled fund, besides the seed money that we got from the Disasters Emergency Committee. What role, when you say you want help with fundraising, what role can an organization like Start Network or any partner that you might have play in helping you to raise funds? Is it direct? Is it indirect? What kind of support would you want from us?
Actually, I think still grant custodian system is a good system with a donor.
What's a grant custodian system for those who may not know what that is?
To become a grant holder between donors who cannot transfer money directly to Ukraine or to local organization, to become this intermediary, but intermediaries that understand and support implementer on local level. So I think this is one of the way how the support can happen. Another way is to help with direct connections with the donors. And third role is capacity building and fundraising is still really important. And fourth role, I would name a fourth role is to help local organization to be presented on international events, because it's still a big platform to make connections, to get some important conversations, how to present themselves, and how to sell their idea to the donors. And this is something that would really support local organizations to find new donors as well, to be presented on international events and international networking.
Fantastic. Thanks for that. And we are still trying to work with you to get other donors interested in the Ukraine Pooled Fund. So hopefully, you will be able to bring the interest of more donors into that. But one other point I wanted to make was around the contracting process, because I think for us that was also an incredibly tough set of conversations with you, and something that we have taken on board and taken back and are trying to figure out how we might do this better next time. And it was mainly the fact that as a UK organization, we are bound by UK law. And so our contract was very much a UK-based contract under the UK legal jurisdiction, with things like intellectual property requirements that are based on UK boilerplate contracts. And I remember the days when we gave you that contract to sign as partners, you and your team members were incredulous. You said, how can we, first of all, it's in English, and why can't we have this contract in Ukrainian? Fair point, absolutely. But also, why is this being signed under UK law and with UK requirements only? Could we have, could we inject a little bit of Ukrainian intellectual property law, for example, into this contract? And I think, I don't know if as a UK charity we would be able to operate under a different legal framework, for example. But certainly we should have taken the time not only to translate things, but also to get advice from a Ukrainian lawyer and a legal firm, and have our two attorneys speak to one another about how to square this circle between two different legal jurisdictions in which we were having, this partnership. And I think in the future that is something that we need to take on board from a very, sometimes it's these very technical issues that create lots of tension, and I know it did between our organizations, and we worked it out in the end. But next time, that's something that I would like to see us do a bit differently. So, Dar'ya, maybe just one last question. Now that you've been through this with us, now that you have a bit more understanding of how the international community now works and its limitations, its strengths and its limitations, in an era where the system is trying to reform itself, and we have all of these conversations around the humanitarian reset, and being more locally led, the whole sector is having these conversations. Do you think the sector is ready for these conversations? And if so, why? And if not, why not?
Okay. I think, first of all, we need to stop talking about humanitarian development nexus. It's not how life happening. You don't go in from one stage to another stage. Maybe, yes, you finish schools and you go to university, yes, but the life is happening in parallel to all of this. And the same in the life in community. It's not happening that they finish the period when they need food and now they need something to economical recovery, for example. They still need to be fed while they have going through economical recovery, and they still need some to create some additional income when they're on the stage of emergency. They need to find a new place to job. So the life is happening not stage by stage. And as well with humanitarian funding, it's similar. Like now we have humanitarian funding, then we need to wait for development funding and then something else. We should talk about consequences of crisis, climate change, consequences of war, and they are much more wider than just bring emergency food support or shelter or something like this. And if we will start to speak consequences and anticipation of crisis, we will see that funding will be more flexible. Yeah, for sure, red lines should be, for sure, the donors can put their limits that, okay, this is something that we don't consider as stage of consequences of war or something like this. But funding should be much more flexible. System is ready for this? So system is consists of local organization, international organization, and donors. So if I would speak about Ukrainian local organizations, they definitely ready for this. They showed their resilience, their capability to work for 4 years during the war in Ukraine, full-scale war. So if we are talking about donors, I see that yes, there are some readiness from some of the donors who are more flexible, who are willing to support these community initiatives and innovations. So we should start with donors who have more risk appetite and can support really innovations and to see and provide learnings after this. And then maybe with these learnings, with piloting, we can engage more structural donors because they will see that there is no so much risk. So I would see such transition from systems that we have now to systems that we want to have in the future.
Great. So we can just leave it at that. I think that was brilliant. I think what I'm hearing is that system now is not ready, but there are green shoots, maybe elements of system next that are beginning to show up. And if we can find those positive elements and make sure that we talk about them more, whether it's donors or partner organizations or different ways of dealing with intellectual property or different ways of dealing with contracts or different ways of designing together, if we can take those positive elements and bring them out, amplify them, talk about them more, maybe system now will transition to system next. At least that's what I'm hoping, and I think that's what you're saying. Am I right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Great. Listen, it was a pleasure to work with NNLPD on this fund. Long may this fund live, and big may it grow. And we will continue to work with you on helping to make sure you're connected with the right people, so that more funds, you can get more funds for this national and local pooled fund. But also just thank you for working with us on this. Hopefully we continue our relationship in the future. And but also thank you for your honesty, because I think it was your pushback that eventually got this fund over the line in a way that you and the organizations that are running this fund can manage and work with. But it taught a lot about us and where our limitations are and where we need to be more flexible in the things that we do. So I think we're all taking something away that's fantastic from this relationship. So thanks for all of that.
Yeah, thank you for this experience, because we definitely learned a lot. We understood a lot about our capacity, about our way of working, and all of what we have right now with a shifted pool fund, which is led by a consortium of local organizations, is what we get in working with you and learning from your experience. And I think for us it was important. So I really want to thank you for this great experience and this huge learning that we get and this capacity that we grow as a local organization.
Oh, thanks very much, Dar'ya. Really good to hear that after 18 months of hammering away at this, we've gotten to the point where it's working. So thanks very much. And thanks for the conversation, for taking the time to do this on your birthday. So happy birthday to you, and thanks so much for having this conversation.
Thank you.